My name is Glynn and welcome to Role-Playing Cartography. Okay, so here we've got Artrage Vitae, and it's what I use for most of my digital ink work, and that's when I'm not using graph paper and Mitsubishi Unipin fine lines to create and then I scan after. So this is just another way of doing it, which is the reason that I would tend to use this method is if I've got some underlying artwork that I want to use as reference or kind of a bit of a trace or something like that. So this is also the same way of drawing things stylistically. So I've created the basic canvas. I've set a 5mm grid equating to 5 foot squares, and I've roughly outlined in a pencil brush the outline of the map that I'm trying to create. So next stage is we drop onto ink work. So I've set up some ink brushes which replicate the brushes that are replicate the pens that I use in traditional drawing. So it's kind of a 0.8mm nib, a 0.1mm nib and a 0.05 nib. So what I do with the 0.8mm nib, which is thicker, is outline the main features of the dungeon. So I'm switching to the 0.8mm, which you can see there. I'm just going to drop the opacity of the sketch so I can see the grid lines okay, and I'm going to switch to my ink layer. And it's really important to keep things on different layers if you can, because sometimes you might want to isolate things. If a client has a change later down the line, sometimes it can be difficult to pick out the bits that you want. So sometimes I might draw the entire map as I'm about to do, but add all the details like the sarcophagus and the wells and you know, ancillary details, add those on a separate layer so I can just switch them on and off. So okay, let's give it a bit of a go. Let's outline this thing. And the thing that's worth bearing in mind is you don't have to be so neat. Carved out rocks and things, they're not that neat. If you're doing dwarven architecture, so you know, you would expect it to be much more in line with their talents. But it really doesn't matter, you know. Don't beat yourself up about straight lines. Sometimes I just draw round circular pools freehand. I don't use a what do they call them? Because you don't need to do it. You can see there that line went a bit wonky. It's perfectly fine. Nothing would be straight in a dungeon, I don't think. You'll probably notice that I'm doing all the verticals first because I'm drawing on a tablet, so it's just easier to draw or keep my lines straighter if I'm always going in a downward direction. And if you wander off the grid line, really don't worry about it, it's fine. So I think that's all the verticals for the moment I'm worrying about. What I can do is I can just drop this to 90 degrees in my Artrage window. Again, I'm just freestyling semicircles. Some might be bigger, some might be smaller, doesn't matter. And sometimes it's the defects in what you're drawing that give it its style. It's as simple as that. So embrace them. Embrace the errors. So this is an area where I talk about just freestyling it, and for me that works better if I draw it in this direction. Just zoomed in a little bit. The joy of digital is if it looks a bit wonky like that does, I can just undo, do it again. But I tend to just let the irregularities alone. It's fine. Okay, so that's pretty much the outline of things. I'm going to add in another layer here, which is the additional ink work for doors and things, and I'm going to switch to the 0.1 brush. So we're into the 0.1 brush stuff now, really. You'll notice as well there's a little bit of smoothing set up on this brush, and that just like when you have a wobbly line, it helps smooth out your jiggling about. Okay, so just jumping back to my main ink layer, I'm going to start adding the lines in. This is for the block work, so there wouldn't be any block work in this area because it's natural stone, and normally for that I'll just add some boulders in. And the way we do this, we just draw full lines a little bit away the thickness of a brick. And you're basically drawing around your outline. Doesn't matter if they don't join up necessarily, it's fine. Just do that section for the moment. Then I basically create another parallel line to it, but less, you know, I'll have some gaps in it like this. Not happy with that bit for some reason, so I'll just undo and carry on. And then we just go around this first section and in little bricks. And then we do basically exactly the same thing, but in between the bricks that we've already created. And the idea is that the second layer is less together than the first layer, and I think it just kind of adds to the kind of realism, I think. Doesn't matter if you're a bit all over the place with these either. It's fine. Okay. And what we will do is we'll continue these lumps of stone all around. So you can see this is basically just like a multi-step process. And they're all done the same. Essentially, there's no. It's just about some style choices. Okay. And then next step is we just do some stipple fill. This is the bit where on a huge map you think, oh, why did I bother? If you're in the right frame of mind, this is very relaxing. If you're not in the right frame of mind, this is tedious. But you get out what you put into a map. So if it looks like it took ages, it took ages. I've tried previously to see if I could digitally replicate this so that it didn't look like it was easily done, and I just haven't found a way. The best way is to do it manually. Don't try and cheat, because doesn't usually work. It's very obvious. It's like AI art. I can spot it a mile off now. I'm like, what's that? Well, that bit doesn't make sense. Anyway. But I'm not going to get into the AI art debate. Because it's pointless. The funny thing about AI art that I've seen, the Midjourney stuff, primarily I think, is inspirationally, it's fantastic. And I don't mind. Well, I'm getting into the AI art debate, aren't I? I don't mind its use as reference, which you can give to an artist and say, I want something like this because I think this is fantastic. This is exactly the kind of thing, but just make sure he's got 5 fingers, not 8. It's very contemplative stippling, because once you just get in the groove, you kind of forget how long it's done. I don't even remember doing that. But as you can see now, it's starting to look like one of my maps. Okay, there's another stage here, which is kind of a shading stage. And when I'm at home drawing traditionally, then we'll just call this shade 1. Duplicate that. Another shade 2. 2 ways of doing it. One is replicating my traditional media way of doing it, which is to use a 0.5mm brush pen. I'll have this at about 45 degrees, and then you're treating it as if light is coming from this way and casting shadows. So I will put this wall casting a slight shadow. This, when you're moving fast, sometimes this tablet doesn't always pick up your stroke. Sometimes I can be a little bit light with it, and I think that's the problem I have. Okay, so you can see that that's starting to look pretty cool. The other way that you can shade, if you're doing it digitally, or you can do it traditionally if you get like Copic marker, a grey, sort of mid-grey, light grey Copic marker. So I'll just use a watercolour brush that I've got here, and I'm going to make it a grey. Just go a bit more light grey. There you go, perfect. And you just basically, right, let's set this layer under the ink work so it doesn't show on top. I mean, this is probably a bit easier. Add some to the sarcophagus to show that it's raised. Don't usually shadow the doors, but why not? There you go. So that's just down to choice, really. Do you want that or that? So, a bit more work to carry on doing that the same throughout, but you get a pretty quick, cool looking dungeon for a little bit of effort. What you could do is you could add in some, let's see if I can find a nice image background just to dump on. Here we go, this one I'll do. Import to a new layer, make it a bit bigger. Set that to multiply. There we go. Pretty good. I'm happy. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you found something useful. Why not consider supporting what I do here by heading over to the MonkeyBlood web store at www.monkeyblooddesign.co.uk. Check out handy maps, handy A5 size maps that you can use as game inspiration. There's towns and villages, buildings and structures, and dungeons, caves and strange locales, and you can use these within your game as inspiration, populate them for your players to explore and pillage. Enjoy. Thank you.